In the annals of history, amidst the tumultuous currents of time, there exists a beacon of wisdom that transcends the ages, a philosophy forged in the crucible of ancient Greece and Rome, yet resonating deeply in the hearts and minds of contemporary seekers. This philosophy, known as Stoicism, offers a timeless path to inner peace, self-mastery, and resilience in the face of life's adversities. As we embark on this journey of exploration and introspection, let us first delve into the origins of Stoicism, a school of thought that emerged in the Hellenistic period, around the 3rd century BCE, and flourished under the guidance of illustrious thinkers such as Zeno of Citium, Cleanthes, Chrysippus, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. At its core, Stoicism is not merely a set of abstract principles or intellectual exercises, but a practical philosophy of life, a way of being and relating to the world that cultivates virtue, wisdom, and inner tranquility. It offers a roadmap for navigating the trials and tribulations of existence with grace and fortitude, empowering individuals to embrace their inherent agency and shape their own destiny. The Stoic worldview is grounded in a profound acceptance of the fundamental nature of the universe, an ordered cosmos governed by rational principles and guided by a divine intelligence. Central to Stoic teachings is the concept of logos, the rational principle that permeates all of creation, imbuing it with purpose and meaning. In the words of the Stoic philosopher Cleanthes, "Lead me, O Zeus, and thou, O destiny. Whither you have assigned me, I will go." At the heart of Stoicism lies the notion of virtue as the highest good, the cultivation of moral excellence and the alignment of one's actions with the dictates of reason and conscience. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, Sophia, courage, Andrea, temperance, Saphrosyne, and justice, Dikaiosine, qualities that serve as guiding principles for living a life of integrity and honor. Moreover, Stoicism emphasizes the importance of cultivating an attitude of apatheia, not to be confused with apathy, but rather, a state of inner tranquility and freedom from the tyranny of irrational passions and desires. By practicing self-discipline and self-mastery, the Stoic sage achieves a profound sense of equanimity and serenity, regardless of external circumstances. One of the most enduring teachings of Stoicism is the distinction between what is in our control, ta efehmin, and what is not in our control, ta ukefehmin. This fundamental principle, articulated by Epictetus in his Enchiridion, highlights the importance of focusing our attention and efforts on those things that lie within our sphere of influence, our thoughts, actions, and attitudes, while relinquishing attachment to external outcomes beyond our power to change. In essence, Stoicism offers a holistic framework for living a life of virtue, wisdom, and inner peace, a philosophy that transcends cultural and temporal boundaries, speaking to the universal aspirations of humanity. As we navigate the complexities of the modern world, with its myriad challenges and distractions, the timeless wisdom of Stoicism serves as a guiding light, illuminating the path to self-discovery and fulfillment. In the pages that follow, we shall embark on a journey of exploration and introspection, delving deep into the rich tapestry of Stoic teachings and drawing inspiration from the lives and legacies of its most illustrious proponents. Together, let us embrace the Stoic legacy with open hearts and minds, forging our own path to self-mastery and inner resilience in the ever-changing landscape of existence. In the tempest of existence, where chaos reigns supreme and uncertainty looms large, we find solace not in the arms of others, but in the fortress of our own minds. Welcome, seekers of truth, to the profound wisdom of Stoicism, a beacon of light in the midst of darkness, offering sanctuary to those who seek refuge from the tumultuous seas of life. Lesson 1: Embrace the immutable nature of the universe. In the words of the venerable Stoic philosopher Epictetus, some things are within our power, while others are not. Recognize the immutable laws of the universe and accept them with grace. We cannot control the actions of others, nor can we alter the course of fate. But within the confines of our own minds lies the power to shape our perceptions and reactions. Lesson 2: Cultivate inner strength through adversity. Like the unyielding oak that stands firm in the face of the raging storm, cultivate inner strength through adversity. Seneca, the illustrious Stoic sage, reminds us, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. Embrace challenges as opportunities for growth and transformation, for it is through hardship that we forge our character. Lesson 3: Practice detachment from external pleasures. In a world consumed by the pursuit of fleeting pleasures, practice detachment from external possessions and desires. As Marcus Aurelius, the revered Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, declares, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. True fulfillment arises not from material wealth or superficial indulgence, but from the cultivation of virtue and inner peace. Lesson 4. Embrace the transience of life. Contemplate the transient nature of existence, for in the blink of an eye, all that we hold dear may vanish like dust in the wind. As the Stoic poet Horace eloquently puts it, carpe diem, quam minimum credula postero, seize the day, trusting as little as possible in the future. Live each moment with intention and purpose, for tomorrow is but a fleeting illusion. Lesson 5. Find serenity in acceptance. Release the burden of expectations and find serenity in acceptance. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus teaches us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Embrace the present moment with equanimity, knowing that everything unfolds according to the divine order of the universe. Lesson 6. Cultivate resilience in the face of adversity. In the crucible of life, cultivate resilience in the face of adversity. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca wisely counsels, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Train your mind to endure hardships with Stoic fortitude, for within every trial lies the seed of opportunity. Lesson 7. Practice self-reflection and mindfulness. Engage in regular self-reflection and mindfulness, for true wisdom arises from introspection. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. By cultivating self-awareness and mindfulness, we gain mastery over our thoughts and emotions. Lesson 8. Seek virtue as the highest good. In the pursuit of a meaningful life, seek virtue as the highest good. As the Stoic philosopher Zeno of Citium teaches us, virtue is the sole good. Cultivate qualities such as wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice, for they are the pillars upon which a noble character is built. Lesson 9. Practice gratitude and contentment. Cultivate gratitude and contentment, for true wealth lies not in abundance, but in appreciation. Seneca reminds us, a man who is good by nature has everything he needs. Embrace the simple joys of life and cherish the blessings that surround you, for gratitude is the antidote to discontent. Lesson 10. Embrace the Stoic path with courage and conviction. Finally, embrace the Stoic path with courage and conviction, knowing that true freedom arises from within. As Epictetus boldly declares, he is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. By cultivating inner strength and resilience, we transcend the limitations of external circumstances and forge our own destiny. In conclusion, my fellow travelers on the path of Stoicism, may these timeless lessons serve as guiding stars in the vast expanse of the cosmos. Let us embrace the Stoic legacy with unwavering resolve, knowing that within the depths of our own souls lies the key to true liberation. As we tread the path of virtue and wisdom, may we find solace in the unshakable fortress of our own minds, and may we emerge victorious in the eternal struggle against the vicissitudes of fate. So it has been written, so shall it be done.